You know those situations where you're like super anticipating something, you're pumped to 300%, adrenaline up high, expectations through the roof, and then something happens and you fall flat on your face? Well, I have been waiting for over a year to get to review these. And now that I finally have them in the studio, the infamous Drop Pandas, which by the way, Drop did send these in for me to review, but as I'm recording B-roll and finishing up a couple of, last minute tests that I wanted to get done before I actually film this part of the review, the amps or the controllers or something in these things just gave up and died. Okay, I guess this can happen with any product, and that's why warranty is so important, but at least I actually got them working and actually was able to use them for time enough that I could get this review up and running. So I guess looking at stuff from the brighter perspective anyway. Plus they actually still work fine when wired, and as you guys are going to see, that's a really good thing. But anyway, starting with price, because budget as usual, these things cost $399. $400. That's one, a pretty steep price tag, but two, and perhaps more importantly, it puts the Panda square in the same ballpark as many other big brands and big names out there in the Bluetooth department. But I happen to also agree with a bunch of people that say these things can, trade blows with more traditional wired headphones around the same price range. So that competition that was already steep just got like exponentially bigger. Oh, and I also got in the box a $49 add-on attachment microphone for the Pandas to take a look at. But okay, for something that was made by Drop in collaboration with THX, so this is not something that Drop rebranded from another manufacturer, how is this thing actually built? Well, everything is made out of plastic mostly, but this is super tanky. Every single material used here is very good quality. Plus matte black everything and no fingerprints to be found. This is not a fingerprint magnet, which is awesome because it helps with the clean subdued look, just as the branding is like super minimal. All you get is that little Drop logo on the inside of the right side of the headband near the yokes. Aside from that, the only things actually written on the Pandas are the L and R on each ear cup on the inside of the pads. This thing also has IPX6 waterproofing, so don't go out submerging them, but if you're out and about wearing a mask, obviously, and starts to rain, you should be, keyword being should, 100% fine with them on your head. But since we're talking being out and about, weight is actually a pretty important category, and the Pandas weigh in at 375 grams. Not the heaviest thing in the world, but they're not exactly light either, which is potentially important because there is no cushioning on the headband at all. But thankfully, these beautiful pads are fluffy memory foam donut pillows that you want to sleep in them, and not with them, in them. These things are super comfortable. And the clamping force is basically just enough to keep them on your head, taking advantage of the plushiness of these beautiful pads so that it won't go anywhere. And since the adjustments are pretty firm and confident or snappy, and they adjust to basically any size head, this is definitely going to fall in the category of, yeah, you can fit this no problem, and it's probably going to be pretty comfortable. Personally, I do get a little bit of pressure right in the middle, the crown of my head, after like 4 hours of usage, but I just tug it slightly forwards or backwards, and another 3 to 4 hours of usage without any issues at all. This ends up being quite a comfortable fit for me. On the left ear cup, there's a 3.5mm connection, and on the right ear cup, you have the microphones, the USB Type-C for charging, and a joystick controller that, frankly, Drop, you guys can just lose the manual and save from having to print them, because this is super intuitive. It's a long press to turn it on, a longer press for pairing, up and down for volume, left and right to adjust the track, click to play, pause, and answer calls, and a longer press in the end to shut them off. I mean, super basic. It could not be simpler. But on the same topic of simplicity, that's also basically all you get. There's nothing else here. There are no features, there's no ANC or active noise cancelling, there's no transparency mode, nothing. That said, because of the beautiful passive isolation these fluffy donut pillows on your ears actually create, having them on your head and playing something is almost the same as actually saying they have active noise cancelling, because you are definitely going to be isolated in your very own little bubble. They come with a nice but not exactly small carry case, because aside from this 90-degree motion on the ear cups, they do not fold at all. Like it's just this. They also come with the 3.5mm cable for wired use, and the Addon microphone comes with an extension that's also an adapter, but without it, no single jack, it's probably not going to be enough to, wrap around your desk and then come back to the Pandas on your head. There's a USB Type-C for charging that also allows you to use the Pandas while connected, taking advantage of the internal THX AAA 0 amplifiers that power, when you're in Bluetooth mode, the ribbon planar 55mm drivers that these things use. Now, in terms of impedance, the Pandas are 26 ohm and 100 decibels of sensitivity, so they're actually pretty easy to drive, much easier to drive than I was even expecting from them. But yeah, there you go. This is probably going to be able to get pushed to pretty comfortable, pretty interesting levels of, volume with basically anything you plug them into. But since they are Bluetooth, what happens in terms of battery? Well, it's stated at least that they are good for about 30 hours of playtime, and that actually tracks. This can easily break the 30-hour mark. Plus, it's got fast charging, so if you're running low on juice, 10 minutes will get you about 3 hours of playtime, and a full charge is about 2 hours plugged in, which is awesome. You're definitely not going to have much downtime with these. And when it comes to Bluetooth, this has Bluetooth 5.0 with a QCC 5124 chipset inside, which gets you basically 10 meters of range in direct line of sight to the source. Plus, you have access to basically all the codecs. You have aptX HD, aptX Adaptive, you have AAC, SBC, and my favorite, LDAC, which is the absolute best sounding codec you could possibly have available to you, and also gets us into that specific spot in the video where we quit talking about everything else and jump into sound. Because these are the best sounding Bluetooth headphones out in the market that you can get, like easily. I know I'm not the first one to say this, and I'm definitely not going to be the last until something else that's actually better than the Pandas comes along. And since that still hasn't happened, facts are, these are the best sounding ones. And that's without taking into consideration something I purposefully didn't mention up to this point. There is no DSP correction here. There's nothing being done digitally to enhance how the Pandas sound. What these things are capable of is a direct result of drop going in and physically tuning the drivers that sit in the ear cups of the Pandas. Drop set out to make the Pandas sound identical, whether you're using them through Bluetooth or you're plugging them in directly wired to whatever source you want, and all in all, they nailed it. These things are a beast, no matter how you're using them. This can pretty much be like an all-in-one solution for so many people out there. Because I mean, on the go, they sound incredible, and when you plug them into anything, they sound just as good. But okay, since we're tackling this subject, how do the Pandas actually sound? They are impressively balanced and linear. They're not at all analytical, they're not clinical, and despite what I've seen some people saying, just because they don't color the sound too much, I would definitely not say they're boring. They're actually pretty fun to listen to. The bass response is excellent, even though the sub-bass region is a little bit better, like marginally better, on headphones like the AirPods Max, for example. But the overall low end has more ambient quality and more detail in the representation. The mid-range is warmly balanced, it's not at all offensive, and there's a phenomenal body to the sound, and takes advantage of the incredible separation that the Pandas are capable of. Plus, the timbre character is smooth, soothing, and relaxed, which makes the experience of listening to the Pandas something that's actually enjoyable to just, go on for hours listening, and it's not fatiguing in the slightest. And when you go into the treble, even though it doesn't have that extra level of sparkle in the treble in the higher up regions, the overall presentation is phenomenal again. It's not too sharp, it's not too harsh, it's not too forward. Again, just like with the mid-range, it's just brought up and forwards enough to bring out the detail. Again, just enough to put you in the room in front of your music. An entire sound signature that's warm, detailed, inviting, it's fun, it's super rich. The imaging is impeccable with a low end that has a lot of punch, and it's really fast in doing that because, I mean, it's a planar magnetic, so speed is part of the deal with the Pandas. Soundstage is the one area where I would maybe like a little bit more. It's not claustrophobic or a center point, but it is basically confined to the actual width of the ear cups. You're not going to get anything actually coming from outside of this barrier. This is basically where it stops. It doesn't necessarily detract from the whole experience of actually listening to stuff with the Pandas, because it does everything else to the degree it does. But I do kind of also get why this narrower soundstage makes these not necessarily ideal for gaming for some people. Really wide sounding gaming environments and gaming worlds might end up feeling like you're losing a bit of that monstrosity of that space. But in games like Overwatch, Cyberpunk, Far Cry 5, and Witcher 3, for example, that I've been using recently for testing stuff, I really didn't come out of any of these experiences feeling like I was lacking or missing something. Oh, and just for good measure, since we're talking about how stuff sounds, this is how the microphone that you can grab as an additional mic for your Pandas sound like. Plugged in through 3.5mm directly to the Pandas and to my system. It's basically, like, it's definitely better than what the internal microphones of the Bluetooth portion of the Pandas sound like, which is basically the same as saying, yeah, it performs like any other external boom mic would, which is always going to be better than the internal microphones of any Bluetooth headphones you can grab out there. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to actually record the Bluetooth microphones of the Pandas before the internals went kaput. Sorry about that. So in terms of a couple of final thoughts, I don't think that they're structured for or even trying to achieve like a priority in the sound quality, like to the detriment of other features, because there flat out are no other features. To me, the Pandas are targeted or aimed at people who value sound quality to the point where they would be okay with getting by without most of these other comforts and features. But stuff like extra padding on the headband or a different way for these things to, fold or joints to make them, be easier to carry around, NFC pairing or an actual app to control the headphones. I mean, those things are attractive extras and they would be definite improvements, but I would still rather have the Pandas as they are right now if it means having a pair of headphones that sound like this. Even if probably, like most likely, only people who are a little bit more into and know a little bit more about headphones and stuff like LDAC and THX amplification technology and that kind of stuff, those people are probably the only ones that are going to think about pulling the trigger on a pair of Pandas instead of going straight to a more well-known brand, to a Sony or a Bose. But since I know this question is going to pop up anyway, this is how I personally would stack them. The Pandas over the XM3s, the XM4s, the Momentum Wireless, the Bose 700s, and basically every other Bluetooth headphone out there. Features be damned, this thing is just way too good. It definitely tips the scale in that direction. Yeah, they're a no-brainer, even at $399. And that's been it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, so like, subscribe, hit the bell, leave any comments or suggestions, and share this video as well if you've enjoyed it. Really helps me out a lot, and I appreciate it. Check out these other videos that might be of interest to you. Thanks a lot for watching. This is Gus, and I'll catch you guys later.
Slave to the new black gold, there's a heartbeat under my skin. Search my electric soul for the hidden man within.